Okay, now it's time to listen Dr. Rupa's speech. Dr. Rupa Vuthaluru, I'd like to hand over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Tian, for a nice introduction and welcoming note. It is indeed, important to look at, how this technology development can be used to deliver innovative learning programs. So today I'm going to talk about technology-enabled platform strategy to transform research and education. So before I go into my talk, a little bit about myself. So my interest in digital technology stemmed from early stages of my career when I designed a microprocessor system to monitor microwave stations in my master's program. And I went on to complete my PhD in atmospheric physics field from Adelaide University, Australia. Using mathematical tools, I studied the lower ionospheric characteristics. Then I had opportunity to teach in engineering for almost 10 years and simultaneously carried out several industrial research projects, including optimization of power station boilers. So I used simulations and modeling, including the computational fluid dynamic tools, to look at the power station boiler operations. So I got very curious about application of this emerging artificial intelligence algorithms and started working with one of the eminent academics, Professor David Gibson, who is UNESCO Data Chair for Higher Education. So currently I'm carrying out research in the area of data science and designing state-of-the-art learning modules and analyzing the data captured by this innovative online platform called Challenge. So in this talk, in today's session, I'm going to talk about how the data science is used to understand learning and also about how data science can transform simple learning platforms into powerful learning machines. So the Challenge platform supports gamified individual and team-based projects in both internally and external to Curtin. The platform's goal is to create highly engaging learning modules with artificial intelligence-driven real-time analytics. In this session, I will be covering the topic technology-enabled platform, as mentioned earlier, the concept, and with a reflection on international advancements and show how the data science techniques are used to understand and measure individual and team-based learning. Following that, I'll share some of my research created using artificial intelligence and natural language processing tools. And the text data from the chats are analyzed to detect what teams are talking and while working with each other and what kind of themes are hidden behind their chats, and eventually the analysis helps create automated feedback systems. So let's go and look at how the international field, moving forward with this artificial intelligence and machine learning tools. So there are several platforms who are trying from these quadrants, which is visionaries, to the leaders. So this is a Gartner Magic Quadrant research methodology, which provides a graphical competitive positioning of 4 types of comparisons. Technology providers will be placed into these quadrants, and which shows how they are moving from one quadrant to the other quadrant. As you can see, there are leaders and visionaries, niche players, challengers, and this Gartner Magic Quadrant for data science and machine learning platforms. But there are several other, you can create similar Magic Quadrant for other fields as well. And as you can see, as they keep on developing these artificial intelligence and machine learning programs, the platforms wants to progress from visionaries to leaders. But these platforms on their own, although they're powerful, needs complementary integration of these learning management systems to serve the needs of the educational requirements. So if you look at, on the other hand, most of the learning management platforms such as Moodle, Blackboard, Canvas, Udemy, or Coursera, edX, etc., well, hundreds and thousands more platforms do not fall into these data science and machine learning categories, as they are purpose-built just for educational delivery. So the challenge platform actually integrates both the data science and learning management capabilities onto a single platform. So now I'm going to share, how the data analyzed and captured from this platform is going to help us learn more about how the student activities and then different learning. So this here, you can see what actually the higher education institutes are looking for. So these are the domains of data science in higher education that actually demands platforms and data science tools. So higher education needs the combination of machine learning, AI platforms, and the learning management systems. So when it comes to higher education settings, the online learning has already widened. So the choice for students, is quite a lot. So soon they will be able to pick and choose different courses from different universities to merge them into qualifications. So they can actually go ahead and do some course on edX or Coursera or Udemy, and then come back and do some courses within the university. Then we need to be able to map their skills learned from both resources and then be able to finalize their qualifications. So for that, we need to understand, what are the different skills they learned from different sources. So as indicated in the domains 1 and 2, it's therefore important to help students identify suitable courses and direct them with structured learning pathways, matching their goals and ambitions at scale, and is only possible with data science tools. So flexible learning and blended learning is a norm now. So creating authentic experiences with augmented reality and virtual reality is expected in the future. So you can't just have a learning management system where you just upload your slides or lecture notes and ask them to read and then appear for the test, but you need to be able to provide more engaging experiences virtually, not just on face-to-face or on campus, because the flexible mode is now ubiquitous. So you need to be able to create those virtual learning experiences, augmented reality experiences, and then we need to be able to understand their interactions with the machines, because the most of the interactions are with machines. So creating dynamic automated feedback is very essential. So as they progress and as they keep on interacting with these platforms, you need to be able to provide them feedback seamlessly without interruption as they demand. So similarly, learning networks leading to career opportunities. So how good it would be a student learning something and be able to understand where the skills are useful, which field and which company can use the skills. So that kind of learning network can be possible with these sophisticated, technology advanced platforms. So these platforms can enable, and provide enormous support to these transformed educational domains. Okay, as I said, there are different learning platforms available, and then there is data science tools that can make, learning understand or measure the learning possible in a whole new way. But what are the skills that are important that needs to be measured in terms of students securing jobs? It's not just enough to, have high scores anymore, but you need other skills such as critical thinking, problem solving skills, and so on. Now, if you look at the right to reproduce and communicate the material has been granted by Foundations for Young Australians. That means you can go and find information freely on the net and then be able to reproduce that. But in that case, what are the skills you're going to check? So the biggest challenge for learners is on one hand to figure out what skills are emerging, what they can do to compete best in the global market, and how do students know what skills they need to demonstrate, and apart from the technical skills they learn, the knowledge they gain from this curriculum. So because any information is freely available on the net, so what are the companies looking and seeking, is the big question. So there has been a research done, and the research has shown that the proportion of jobs that demand critical thinking has increased by 158%. So this is not just the critical thinking level, but this is the growth rate. So that's how it is accelerating, how the companies are demanding, how much critical thinking is required. So when information freely available, you need to be able to understand that information, think critically, and then deliver, and then use your creativity, use your problem solving skills, and then use your presentation skills. And then the teamwork is very important, because how you blend with your team, it can be very important to be successful in whatever you are doing, whether it is a science experiment or whether you are working in a company. So that is going to be a critical factor. So on our platform, we measure this team collaboration skill extensively, and I'm going to show you, how we do that with the data science tools. So naturally, after looking at all this, the learning, atmosphere, the leading question will be, research question will be, how can technologies enabled for the collaborative teamwork? That is, the platforms have now the capability to make teams work together and then learn, but how do they promote these educational leads, building knowledge skills and research skills and capacity building skills, and then the culture of innovation? How do these platforms promote all these? And then how can these predictive algorithms using the new platform assist with adaptive learning mechanisms needed to optimize? How do they optimize learning for each individual at scale? So what it means is, for each individual across the globe, any number of students should be able to acquire these skills and be able to understand how these data science tools can help them demonstrate their skills wherever it is required. So these are the two questions that will be answered using the analysis I'm going to show. Before I go into the analysis part, this is a little bit about what the challenge platform can offer. So you can see that there is individual learning modules available and team learning modules available. So these are just a brief list of the programs that are currently deployed on the platform, and more than 40,000 students have accessed the platform both in individual and team-based learning modes since the establishment. So it wasn't long ago, it was established in 2014. So two unique data features are, so the real-time dashboard analytics. So as you interact with the platform, there will be dashboards created with, which actually provide in the form of graphics all your interactions. And then the platform is integrated with Cisco WebEx Teams, app. So that way you are able to, actually chat with your team members and then exchange knowledge. And we are going to also, analyze that chat data. For example, personal development programs they've shown here. The part of the Curtin Extra programs, free for all Curtin students. They have leadership programs, careers, and global discovery modules on the platform. So for example, a student wants to develop leadership skills as they would like to demonstrate to a multinational oil and gas company. These modules help them identify some sources where they can get leadership skills, and they also learn how to demonstrate them to their personal, or prospective employers. Okay. Now, as I said, in our research, we try to measure the collaborative skills because we think it's vital for success of any individual as well as the team. And then, as you see, science is a collective intelligence, and by working together, now you can produce more than working individually. So teams working together with no bosses or workers, with no hierarchy at all, is going to be the trend in future. So let's see, how we are going to, understand what are the individual students' contribution in a team, and also how overall the teams are going to perform. So these are some of the analytics, just a snapshot of what the platform automatically generates. So with the remote learning and atmosphere, creating multiple choice tests on the computer may not be the best way of assessing students. So you need to be creative in using the technology to assess them. And the advancement of the technology and data science enables us to capture the evidence of this learning in many different forms, as shown here. I can see that, the bubble chart actually shows, the number of hours a student spends learning and then, producing those skills. And then similarly, you can have a comparison between the students. And then if you look at the bubble graph, only one student or two students completed all 50 activities, right? And however, one of the students, took half the time compared to the other student. So similarly, if you go towards the 25, activities level, then there are many students who completed 25 activities, but the time taken by them range from about 20 hours to even, 80 hours. So it varies. So when you start comparing, if a student achieved the same, activity, it completed the same activities, but if you want to know what is the difference between them, it can be a good thing that they spend more time on it, or it can be something they didn't understand or lacking. So you can go back and then understand both learning design, whether is there a problem in making creating the test or creating the activity, or is there something the student is unable to understand? Is it from the student's perspective? So that is the research we are going to do with this kind of graphics. I'm going to go through some details of each of these evidences in the following slides. And the skills that can be measured fall into 4 different categories. As you see, that digital literacy, which is the most seek skill from the employers from the previous figure you have seen. Then we are going to look at how the personal learning can be extracted from these graphics, and how the collaboration can be looked at, and also how the problem solving skills can be understood by these graphics. So the first one we are going to look at is the network graph. So this is a network graph created using a Python program. So the major focus of the platform is to facilitate team-based learning, right? And then we want to measure the contribution of individuals. So the blue dots are the students, and then the outer, the gray dots are the charcoal ones, are the work done by individual, students individually, and the shared ones. Now I'm going to share, a colored one to make it more clear. This one, automatically generated by the by the platform. So these shared ones are the tasks completed by students together. This is, in this graph, only 2 students did these tasks together. Now, maybe if I go to the next one, you'll see without the labels of these tasks, we can see that the red nodes are here, the students, and the purple node is the activity completed by 3 students together. So the tasks worked on between 3 individuals, and the green nodes are the tasks worked on between 2 individuals. So the dark blue nodes, they work on their own individually. And the line thickness reflects the volume of contribution. See that some lines are, thicker compared to the some, other lines. So that means they worked more on this activity together compared to, this activity or this particular activity, which is weaker line, so they spent very little time. So all these graphics are automatically, created on the platform so that, the lecturer or a teacher can go and have a look at how the teams are performing. And if there is a problem, they can just go back either to look at the design of the activity or alert the students saying that, oh, you need to be spending, or you need to be talking to these people to complete this, or it is a group activity, you need to be contributing. So it can act as a, feedback mechanism system. This is something, they can do, but like they can compare high performing and low performing teams. So that's one of the benefits. And this graphic, which is filtered by month window, shows how the teams differ, in their approach, and how, the teams are completing their tasks. How, if you look at the high performing teams, they started working on the task early on in the first month, and there is also evidence of collaboration between them. See that, they started working May, and then there is collaboration because in June, July, you can see the green dots, and they can even work 3 of them together. But if you compare that to the low performing team, they haven't started working, only 1 student started working on 1 task, and then 2 students, they did complete some tasks, but independently, there was no collaboration. And then they started collaborating. In the end, they rushed to complete all the tasks in the last month. So that tells, there will be, later on, our research, showed evidence that there is a correlation in the way you approach the problem, you complete the task. So again, all these graphics can be automatically downloaded from the platform, because as the students interact, as the teams interact with the task, it will be generated, on a continuous basis. And here, a few other examples of the automated dashboard analytics. This is a time analysis and task interaction analysis. So these 2 graphics identifies classroom trends in the teamwork. So a high-performing team, again, worked more at all hours. You can see the blue, is across all the times, and including at night, spent time on important subtasks. And low-performing teams, worked less during the day and none at night, and missed important tasks. So you can see the, comparison of the tasks here, blue and orange, the high-performing and low-performing teams. Now, so far, we have been seeing the evidence of team collaboration and team learning, and these graphics are about individual learning. So it identifies, the time that students are spending on each page, and useful in associating effort with specific pages of content and evaluating the, instructional design. So what that means is, for example, the student worked more on what is labor market for information compared to where can my degree take me. So if you look at this, what is the labor market information, 33.3% compared to where can my degree take me. This is from one of those, extracurricular activities modules deployed on the platform. This is not a curriculum based one. We have done the same thing for curriculum as well. but for privacy's sake, I'm going to share the general ones. So when you look at that, it may be a good thing, that they are looking at the market information more compared to, what their skills are. But it is possible that, the activities in the modules are, not created enough so that they look at their own skills compared to the outside market. But generally, the modules have similar number of activities. So you can alert the student saying that, or maybe you need to be looking at, what are your skills and how these skills can be taken to, achieve that particular goal you want to, or that particular job you would like to do that. So that kind of feedback is possible, with help of these average time and, activities. You can also go and check, your design, instructional design, and then modify accordingly if you think, oh, looks like, I may have to create more activities in this or reduce the number of activities in this, and then you can readjust so that it'll be a best delivery of your content. And the next one is, this is a Sankey diagram, which actually traces how students, individual, this is again individual one, how individual student is, performing their activities in which sequence and the time taken also. So in comparison to the previous one, this just gives you time, average time, whereas the Sankey diagram, which tells you both the order, in the which they perform, as well as the time. If you look at the width of this, or you can call it length, the rectangular node, it tells you, how long that student has spent on it. First, they started here on the WHS research, moved on to social media, legal, and ethical research, and then spent time on that, quite long, and then moved on to a next task, and then went back to research, and then they keep doing that. This can be useful in both in science and humanities fields, because often when students are conducting experiments, they need to be doing some prerequisite modules, or even they need to be doing some research before they do the design and test experiment, or report writing. So you can trace down, how their achievement depends on how their task sequence is. And it's also possible sometimes the high performing students may not follow this task but still achieve it, but that can be captured in our research and then have a correlation with that. So after completing all these modules, the platform automatically, oh, I think I missed one. Yeah, it actually lists the learning outcomes they have covered, in that module. So that way you will know, what are the different learning outcomes they have met interacting with the projects, and then list of learning outcomes they have not met by avoiding the projects. And then all this is captured into a badge with some metadata, behind it. It tells you what are the different, skills they acquired and what is the percent of, completion. And this supports the micro-credential concepts, which is going to be, a norm in the new educational environment, because with this, online affordability, you can have smaller, units which interest students, and then they can combine all these micro-credentials into a bigger unit. So that's possible with this one. As I said, the platform is integrated with the Cisco, Teams app. So students can chat while they do their tasks, and then the platform actually tags the task label to their chat so that we know, which chat belongs to what task. Just like, we did on the Zoom, all the attendees can chat using their chat option, and all the text data is captured by the platform, and then I use the artificial intelligence and natural language processing tools to analyze that data. So when we do that, we will be looking at, different topics from that chat, and then I'll show you, how that can be useful for different, feedback systems, and even creating question answer systems. So a little bit about my research, using the NLP tools. Before going that, brief introduction of what this natural language processing is. It's a mixture of artificial intelligence and computational linguistics. That means, as you know that computers can understand only numbers, so you need to convert this text words into numbers, and we eventually convert them into vectors and then document term matrices, and then apply these modeling tools, statistics and probability theory tools, to understand the hidden themes. One of the tools is the topic modeling tool, which is a data mining technique which discovers the subjects of the text which are hidden inside those conversations. So the process is something like this. A person says something or types a chat, and just like we have both options. If somebody wants to talk, they need to raise their hand and then use their microphone. So both the sound and the text are captured by the platform, and then that's converted into text form, and then the NLP system created can convert that into text into components and understand the context and focus areas of that conversation. And then the results, they direct the machine to the next steps. For example, providing the feedback or finding a resource, or help the students, with finding the answers to some questions. So this particular topic modeling tool can be used in, it has got many applications. So it can be like semantic analysis can be done, and then you can actually summarize the meeting, chat, or the chat from the meetings, or even the recording meeting can be summarized using this NLP technique. And sentiment analysis can be done, what are they talking about? Are they talking good about this or not? You don't have to have that Likert scale where you click 1, 2, 3, but you can just say words, and then that is converted into sentiment analysis. And then eventually you can create a chatbot where you ask a question, and then it will go and look at all the chat data, text data gathered. It'll convert into a question answer system, and then that becomes a chatbot. And there are so many industry applications as well. For example, in geography, they took actually street names as words, and then they have clustered them to look at the map of the streets, and then how they can optimize the routes. So those are some of the examples, and this is one of the output from my topic modeling analysis. The goal was to look at what are the broad topics discussed during a chat or a meeting, and how are the topics similar to each other. And so I used the latent tertiary allocation model, and because we get a multi-dimensional output to display, the output which can be understood by humans, used principal component analysis, then that's the output, which gives the intertopic distance between the topics. As you can see, the topic 1 is quite away from all other topics. That means and the size of the circle tells that is the major topic talked in this conversation. And this was a game-based chat data. They were introducing to each other, and then their idea forming, how they are, again, we are looking at collaboration skills of these groups of students. So the value created is topics of conversation are identified along with the measures of similarity among topics, and then this information can be passed along to the further processing. So we are still, going to do the next steps of how, we can use these topic modeling results to combine them with the word embedding technique, and then compare, and then create a question answering system, and automate the analysis and automate the feedback system, and then learning, chatbots or self-scoring practices. So we are just moving towards that. At the moment, we are just prioritizing, looking at the chat data and looking at what are the different topics in their chat. And from that, we are able to move towards creating the chatbots. So that is, some brief review of some of the research I carried out using the natural language processing tools. So anyone interested in using the platform or collaborating in the research we are taking up, more than welcome to contact us. And as I said, Professor David Gibson, he's the UNESCO Chair of Data Science in Higher Education, and we'll be able to share our results and then maybe carry out research together. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, Dr. Rupa Vuthaluru, thank you very much for your insightful and interesting talk. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's continue to the questions and answer session. And we have received several questions from participants. Let me choose and read two questions first.
Yeah.
The first question from Yuli Rahmawati. I think it's from Universitas Negeri Jakarta.
Yeah.
She asked you about what do you suggestion to develop the digital literacy for our students? Because she said that it is not simply using technology. This is the first question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I will read the second question.
No worries. Yes.
Yeah, the second question from from Alin Mardia, also from ONG. Is the meaning of technology limited to computer, internet, or something digital, or making a simple tool as project is included as technological skills integration in learning? We hope that those questions are clear for you.
Yeah, they are, digital literacy is actually, even though that's the most demanding, tool, but there are, very few places where they actually measure that, right? Because they take it for granted. With the new generation, we know that, they play digital games and they actually use technology more than our generation. So one way of introducing this digital skills is by introducing game-based learning, right? If you tell a student that there is a test, the mindset of the student is so different. When you say that this is just a game and then you play the game, there is no pass or fail, right? So when you say this statement that there is no pass or fail, imagine the psychological, changes in their brains. They would just go and attempt with no, inhibitions. They start interacting with, digital technology without their knowledge. They start acquiring these skills. So within that game, you introduce these, skill set which you think, they would be needing. So all these programs deployed are actually game-based, designs, but sometimes you cannot make the curriculum ones not so much about the game-based, but you can still make these practice quizzes, or they can be in the form of which are not assessed. So I feel that that's one way of introducing the digital skills, and then you can okay, can you give some examples of the instrument to measure students' digital literacy? Yeah, like I said, we haven't developed full framework how we can map them, but the most important thing the platform captures is the number of interactions a student has done. That is captured on it. If you can see all those bar charts, it will tell how many number of times they have used it and how many types of artifacts they have created in it. So you can actually create voice recording and then upload. You can create a graphic, you can create an interactive graphic, or you can create a video and upload. So there are so many different levels, or you can just type in the chat or in a text box, which we have as an, I haven't actually gone through the capabilities of the platform, how we have different types of, interactions we can have in that, match, mix and match, multiple choice, fill in the blanks, or so you can actually have variety of activities and see that you can have the same content in different modes and see, take one student and compare how they are interacting in different types of activities. For example, some students are visual and then they would like to look at the picture and understand, and then they can actually upload a picture of their own imagination. Some students are good with their words and then they will be able to, do that. Some students, they can actually use the technology. So you can actually create a module where they just need to go and then use this particular digital tool and then upload an evidence as artifact. So that's the measure, you can do to identify. And this can be used, started from the kindergarten to high school to higher education system. But the levels of types of, activities you create will be different. For example, for student, high school or junior school students, you can just create a small painting, activity, and then you can see, how they are choosing, how long they are taking to complete that activity. That would be at the moment, the measure, the time and the type of interaction and the number of interactions are the, measures we are using at the moment. I don't know if I have a mapping, yeah, there is a mapping. So how we measure these targets. So in the team learning environment, if we are measuring the collaboration, how do we measure, with the collaboration? So you take the density, that means, like I said, the thickness of the line. So that can be a good thing or bad thing. That can be a good thing in the sense, the team members work together on that task quite a long time. So that establishes that, you are maintaining the team organization. So that means you're collaborating with your team students. So these are not easy to measure tools. So in general, what we do is we provide, we give them a group task, a project, 3 students together, they do the project, they submit the report, and any mark given is going to be the same for all the team members. But this one, you can actually tell, which student contributed more. When you ask the team to reflect, self-evaluation from these group team members, they don't usually talk bad about their team members. So they say that we all contributed same, 33.3% each, so that they get the same marks each other. But the actual platform actually can capture who is doing what without them telling, there is an evidence that, who worked together most and who did not contribute. But then again, it depends on how you create the activity. Sometimes the activity can be one person do the research, one person do the design, and the other person do the, testing environment. Then you need to be careful how you allocate these marks. You can't just take person doing the research, maybe doing a lot of interactions, and then you will have more bias towards this leader, or the team researcher compared to the, the one who is designing, who might be doing outside the platform. They design it in their own and then just only upload one interaction. So you need to be doing this in correlation with your design of the activity and then compare the interactions, see that to measure. Same thing, time and task, time series analysis of the participants, then you can again, establish and maintain shared understanding. So this is not the organization, but how you understand, as you progress, how you are using the previously built knowledge, and based on that, how you are moving to the next task. So that is captured. And then task and subtask organization, task and subtask sequence, and duration, you're taking appropriate action to solve the problem. And then in complement to this, and that's our actually next step, where when I analyze the chat, simultaneously happening when they are doing this task, then I can extract the task, information and combine with this and say, the team member said, oh, I think this hasn't been done properly. Shall we, redo this? That means you're taking appropriate action to solve the problem. So I need to do the data mining of that text data and then combine with this and then confirm that this is what is happening at that time. And then, this is, I have the evidence that, the student took appropriate action to solve the problem. So I hope, that answered the question.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pa, for your answer.
Yeah.
Actually, we have received more questions.
Okay.
Let me choose two other questions.
Yeah.
Question from Nanang Hermawan. Nanang Hermawan asks you about Shanley diagram you show on your presentation, I think.
Which one?
Shanley diagram. It talks about on how social media influence student attitude.
Oh, the network diagrams?
Yeah. He asks you about, can you mention some example of attitude of students in social media that supported their knowledge, skills, and attitudes based on your research?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That is the first question. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
I will read the second questions.
Sure.
The second questions from Esmar Budi. He asks you about your institution experience in remote laboratory. Can it replace the laboratory activity?
Yeah. I will talk about that in a minute. The first question was, how the social interactions influence, if I'm understanding the question correctly, that, we are trying to understand while, doing the text mining and to, look at this text mining is done in a way that if anybody knows how the natural language processing tool works, they take the words and then they look based on the semantic context of the words and the probability, using the probability, theory, we cluster them into different groups. And then by looking at that groups of words, you can actually tell, the hidden intentions of students. And if I can answer that, two different levels. If I go in terms of the the words they used and then the meanings of the words and then how I can use the semantic meaning structure, linguistical nature of the words, I can tell in what category of, attitude they might have. Or if you just look at, how they are interacting with their team members, and that means they are collaborating with each other, that is also one type of attitude, people can have. And in general, as you know, that the more people skills you have, the efficiency of a person increases. So it can be captured in both ways. If I look at the text analysis, or if I look at the network graphs, how they are interacting with each other, as I can say, maybe too much behind. So that is the way, it interacts. So when I did the course with MIT, and I learned, they actually shared a lot of their research, how the social behavior influences person's ability and then skills. So it's not just a person, but the people around you matter a lot. So they actually studied the families who are living around the MIT, and they looked at their, the telecommunication data. They actually looked at who they are communicating, and they also did a study of taking 1,000 students from Copenhagen University, giving them mobiles, so that will be acting as a wearable instruments. So they captured the data, how a student is going to different social events and how they are going to, study areas like libraries, and who is living next to who, and then how that is influencing their both social and then academic, behaviors and outputs. So I can probably share that literature paper with you to understand, it is a great study, which is, of course, takes a lot of people together and a lot of, infrastructure, like everything is connected, all the mobiles are connected to this central, data collection place, and all that data has been analyzed to understand the social behavior. And some of the very interesting things are like, or can be very, simple, but when they see that there is no signal coming, the mobile signal entering into the campus for a period of time, that means the student is maybe in trouble, or he's not attending the classes. So usually in higher education institute, you don't take any attendance, it's left to their independent, their responsibility. But when they looked at the data, they were able to predict that a person is going to have problems before they even knew, by the way they are interacting with, by comparing it to their general behavior until that time. And then when they start, stop exploring or stop doing certain things, they could predict that. So they have done some, that's how I got inspired, into doing the research in using these data science tools. So I could see that, using those wearable technology and how they captured the data, and then by studying the families around the campus, and then how, if for example, if you introduce an app to a student who is very social with a lot of people, using this network analysis, they could identify the dots which are connected to most, networks. And if you introduce an app to that person, it will be spread across all the friends very quickly, compared to, a student who is not like networking with a lot of people. Same with this pandemic, if you take the app which, which has got Bluetooth connection to all the people, you can identify, the clusters and how that cluster can expand depending on who is infected. So all that literature and analysis and the programs have been introduced to us, while we were doing that course. But, at the moment, what we are looking is just purely what the platform can do and how I can use the chat data. And I think there was another question, I forgot the second question.
The second question about the use of, your institution experience in remote laboratory. Can it replace tool laboratory activity?
Yeah. When I was teaching engineering course, I had colleagues, group of colleagues who actually started this remote lab with help of honor students, and master students. They developed a fluid mechanics lab where the equipment is connected to the computer, with the help of some interface, and then using the computer like control system, I can open the tap, or I can open the fluid flow and then measure, fluid flow, and then see, how the data captured, or I can even take the measurements and then conduct the experiments. So the question was, how does it compare to, carrying out the face-to-face laboratory, in-class laboratory? There were marked differences. There are, some good and some bad. Obviously, when you are conducting an experiment, remotely, you don't have only one session. So if you are going into campus, you will be allocated just one session, and you have one opportunity to conduct that experiment and then come out. You can't go and revisit and do the experiment again. If you just don't do the experiment on that day, it was a bad day or something goes wrong, you can't get the results, you have to depend on somebody else's results or do something like that, right? Whereas if you are doing experiment remotely, you can go and revisit again. You can try and adjust these parameters. You can experiment and then you can do it at your own pace when you're ready to do, and then learn a lot. But at the same time, there are manuals available online which can direct you. And then we did a study where we tried to video the people who are doing the experiment in the lab, and then look at their movements, how they reach out to the demonstrator and ask a particular question, and then get some clarification instantly. But when you're doing remotely, it sometimes may not be possible. You may have to look at the manual and do the investigation, or seek the answer on your own, unless the unit coordinator is ready to answer any time when you send an email or chat with them. But that's the reason why we are trying to do this text analysis, where, for example, if student asks some question, it doesn't have to, it may play a role of a demonstrator by taking you to the right source, where, or if I ask that, I don't know, can you tell me how the Bernoulli's equation works? Okay, then my text analysis can identify Bernoulli's equation, and then it will go to the resource of all the Bernoulli's equation frequently asked questions and try to match. So now we are at the stage of just matching words, but now the next step would be matching the sentences and matching the paragraphs. So when we do that, it actually, instead of just taking the semantic meaning, it will also take into account the context you're asking. Are you asking about just one particular theoretical aspect of Bernoulli's equation, or are you asking how I'm using this Bernoulli's equation for this particular application? So it will take into account the application aspect as well as Bernoulli's equation, and then your question in that context. Then it will automatically send you to that resource, and then that will open up that resource and then give you exact information required by you. We are hoping that we will go to that stage soon. With the word embedding in techniques, it is possible, but there are, like I said, for remote learning and for learning in the laboratory directly, there are a few advantages and disadvantages both. But I think with this kind of, yesterday I saw somebody showing the simulated labs as well, which is different to the remote labs. Remote labs, you will be operating the physical apparatus by yourself. The simulated ones are simulated. But those advancements are happening, and then they're trying to go more and more close to the reality, so that you have the authentic experience. And maybe with augmented reality techniques, you can actually do a lot of experiments, using these remote techniques. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pa, for your answer. Actually, there are many questions from the participants. However, we have limited time.
Sure.
So we have end our discussion, Dr. Rupa.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Finally, we come to the end of this session. May I thank to participants for your attention and active participation in this virtual plenary discussion. I hope you enjoy the program. We look forward to your participation in the next section.
Yeah.
But before we close this session, let's give a big applause to Dr. Rupa Vuthaluru.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rupa.
Thank you.